I'm a history teacher, 34 years old, and I teach teenagers about wars they'll never fight and revolutions they'll never join. For years, I prided myself on being rational. I thought divine encounters were fabrications, coping mechanisms for the weak. But on a Tuesday night in my modest Porto Alegre apartment, something happened that would force me to question my own sanity. My consciousness persisted when it shouldn't have. That's the simple, terrifying truth. What I experienced defies the materialist worldview I'd built my entire adult life around. And tonight, I'm going to tell you exactly what happened when Jesus visited me. Not in metaphor, not in dream, but in a reality more vivid than the one you're experiencing right now. It started with insomnia. Again, I'd been averaging 3 hours of sleep for weeks. My reflection in the bathroom mirror showed a man graying at the temples, despite being only 34. Dark circles carved deep beneath eyes that had read too many accounts of human suffering and not enough stories of redemption. I felt like a fraud every day I stood in front of my students, pretending history had lessons, pretending any of it mattered. The truth was, I'd stopped believing my own lectures years ago. That Tuesday, a student asked if people ever really changed. I gave her the vague teacher answer about learning from the past. But I didn't believe it. I'd stopped believing in transformation. I came home to an empty apartment. No family, no relationships that had survived my chronic cynicism and emotional unavailability. I'd pushed people away for so long that loneliness had become my default state. I told myself it was intellectual honesty, that I simply saw through the illusions most people clung to. But that night, alone in my bedroom at 11 o'clock, staring at the ceiling, I felt something crack inside me. Not dramatically, just a quiet, devastating realization that I was utterly, completely alone, and that perhaps I'd engineered this isolation myself. At least that's what I thought. I didn't know I was being watched. Existential dread seeps, accumulates. Years of unprocessed grief, family bitterness, abandoned dreams, and failed relationships. All of it sat on my chest that night like a physical weight. I don't know why I prayed. I hadn't prayed in 15 years, not since I'd intellectually dismantled every theological argument I'd grown up with. But desperation does strange things to the mind. At 11:11 p.m., according to the digital clock on my nightstand, I whispered into the darkness of my bedroom, "If you're real, prove it. I'm done pretending I have this figured out." It wasn't a prayer of faith, it was a challenge, a last, sarcastic gasp from a man who expected silence. I did not get silence. The air in my bedroom changed first. Not temperature, exactly. Density. Like the atmosphere suddenly thickened, became substantial. I sat up in bed, my rational mind immediately searching for explanations. Gas leak, neurological event, sleep paralysis, but I was fully awake, heart hammering, every sense heightened. Then the light came. It didn't shine. That's the wrong verb. The light breathed. It emerged from nowhere, from everywhere, filling my bedroom with a golden white radiance that wasn't harsh, wasn't blinding, but was absolutely, undeniably present. My walls didn't disappear, but they became irrelevant. The physical boundaries of my apartment bedroom in Porto Alegre simultaneously existed and didn't matter. I tried to stand. I couldn't. Not because I was paralyzed, but because the concept of standing suddenly seemed absurd. Up and down lost meaning. My body remained on the bed, but I was also somewhere else, in some dimension where linear space didn't function the way physics textbooks promised it should. Terror hit me first. Pure primal fear. Every instinct screamed that I was dying, that this was a stroke or an aneurysm or cardiac arrest. My mind raced through medical possibilities, psychological explanations, anything to avoid the possibility that this was actually happening. But there was no medical explanation for what stood before me. And then I saw him. Jesus stood before me. Not a metaphor. Not a hallucination. He was there. The person I'd dismissed as a historical figure was standing in front of me, radiating a presence that made every other experience of my life feel like a faded photograph. His eyes weren't just looking at me. They were looking through me past every defense mechanism and intellectual argument I'd ever constructed. I felt utterly, completely seen. Every secret, every failure, every moment of cruelty I'd justified, every person I'd hurt, every dream I'd buried, every lie I'd told myself. All of it was visible. The shame was crushing. My mind raced with defenses. I'm a good person. I never hurt anyone intentionally. I was just protecting myself. All of it sounded hollow, pathetic, before I could even speak the words. He didn't condemn me. That's what broke something in me. There was no anger in his gaze, no disgust, no rejection. Just this overwhelming, incomprehensible love mixed with authority so absolute that every cell in my body recognized it. This wasn't a suggestion. This wasn't a philosophy. This was the source of reality itself, looking at me with total knowledge and total compassion, and I had no idea how to process that. I tried to speak. I don't. I can't. My voice sounded strange, distant, like it was traveling through water. He spoke my name. Not Daniel. He said something else, something I'd never heard before but recognized instantly. It was my name, my real name, the identity I'd spent 34 years running from. I don't have words in any human language to explain it. It was like hearing the truth about myself for the first time. And it was terrifying because it contradicted everything I'd built my self-concept around. I'd believed I was cynical because I was smart, guarded because I was wise, alone because I was independent. None of that was true. Daniel, he said, using my earthly name now. His voice not loud but filling every cavity in my chest, resonating in my bones. You are not who you've believed yourself to be. That sentence shattered me, because I knew instantly that he was right. The persona I'd constructed, the intellectual skeptic, the rational teacher, the man who'd figured out that hope was a lie, none of it was real. It was armor, defense against a terror I'd never acknowledged, that I was unworthy of love, that I was fundamentally broken, that if anyone really saw me, they would reject me. So I'd rejected them first. I'd rejected everyone. I'd rejected God. I'd rejected the possibility of grace, of transformation, of redemption. Because accepting those things required admitting I needed them, and admitting I needed them required facing the fact that I was not, in fact, in control. The light revealed my life as a tapestry of choices. Cynicism over vulnerability, bitterness over forgiveness, and woven through it all were his quiet attempts to reach me, a student's question, a refused invitation, a forgotten dream. You asked for proof, he said, and there was something almost like sadness in his tone, not disappointment, grief. I have been proving myself to you for years, Daniel. You chose not to see. That hurt worse than condemnation, because it was true. I'd constructed an entire worldview that conveniently excluded any evidence that contradicted my need to remain in control, to remain isolated, to remain safe. Safe from hope, from disappointment, from the terrifying vulnerability of actually believing in something. Who am I? I asked, my voice breaking. Not who are you? I knew who he was. Every part of me recognized him. But I had no idea who I was anymore. If everything I'd believed about myself was a lie, then what was true? He stepped closer, and I should have been terrified, but I wasn't. His presence was overwhelming, yes, but it wasn't crushing. It was like standing at the edge of an ocean, recognizing that you're small, but also that the ocean doesn't want to destroy you. It wants to hold you. You are mine, he said. You always have been. Then he spoke my real name. The identity I was created to hold before fear made me small. A name I'd never heard but recognized instantly. Something older, something true. Beloved, he said, chosen before the foundation of the world, known in every hidden place, seen in every moment you believed yourself invisible. And I broke, not gently, not gracefully. I shattered like glass hitting concrete, and the pieces scattered everywhere. 34 years of carefully constructed identity, of defensive sarcasm, of intellectual armor, of self-condemnation so deep I'd mistaken it for truth. All of it came apart in his presence. I fell to my knees, though there was no floor. I wept, though I had no body. The sound that came out of me wasn't crying. It was something deeper, something that had been locked inside since I was a child, since the first time I learned that love could be conditional, that worth could be measured, that some people were chosen and others were just tolerated. "I'm not," I managed to say through the sobs. "I'm not chosen. You don't know what I've done. You don't know who I really am." His voice was gentle, but it cut through every defense I had left. "I know exactly who you are. The anger you hid from your students, the bitterness you nursed toward your father, the night you screamed at the ceiling, the woman whose heart you broke out of fear, the promises unkept, the shame you wear like a second skin." I couldn't breathe. Every word was true. Every word was a wound reopened. "I know," he continued, "and I have called you mine anyway." The light around us intensified, but it wasn't blinding anymore. It was warm. It felt like being held by someone who sees every ugly thing about you and refuses to look away. "You think your failures disqualify you," Jesus said, stepping even closer. "You think your doubt makes you unworthy. You think the version of yourself you've been hiding is too broken for me to redeem." He reached out, and I flinched. Not because I was afraid he would hurt me, but because I was afraid he would touch me and realize I wasn't worth it. But his hand didn't hesitate. He placed it on my chest, right where my heart would have been, and the contact sent a shockwave through my entire being. It wasn't pain. It was recognition. It was the feeling of coming home after a lifetime of wandering. "Daniel," he said, using my earthly name now, tender and deliberate. "Your brokenness is not your identity. Your past is not your prison. And your shame is not the truth about who you are." I couldn't speak. I could barely think. All I could do was feel this overwhelming, impossible love that didn't make sense, that I hadn't earned, that I couldn't comprehend. "Then what is the truth?" I whispered. His eyes held mine, and I saw galaxies in them. I saw time folding in on itself. I saw every moment of my life from his perspective, not as a judge tallying sins, but as a father watching his child stumble through darkness, calling out, waiting, hoping. "The truth," he said, "is that I have loved you since before your first breath. When you ran, I pursued. When you cursed my name, I whispered yours. When you decided you were too far gone, I was already planning your redemption." I shook my head, not in denial, but in disbelief. "How? How is that possible? After everything?" "Because love doesn't keep a record of wrongs," he interrupted gently. "And my love is not like human love, Daniel. It doesn't run out. It doesn't grow cold. It doesn't depend on your performance or your perfection." He paused, letting the words settle into the deepest parts of me, the parts that had been starving for this truth my entire life. "I am not asking you to clean yourself up before you come to me. I am telling you, come as you are, and I will make you new." And then he did something I didn't expect. He forgave me. He forgave me by looking at every wrong thing I'd done and absorbing it. I saw my sins like dark threads being pulled out one by one, dissolving in his light. It should have destroyed him. It should have been too much. But he didn't even flinch. "It is finished." Not just on a cross, but here, now. He had already paid for it. I didn't need to punish myself for canceled debts. The weight I'd been carrying for decades, the guilt, the shame, the self-hatred, it lifted. Not slowly, not gradually. It was gone. Like shackles falling off, like a hand releasing its grip on my throat. I gasped, and the air that filled my lungs felt different, lighter, cleaner. "I'm free," I said, and the words sounded insane, but they were true. "I'm actually free." Jesus smiled, and it was the kind of smile that could heal nations. "You always were. You just didn't know it yet." I wanted to stay in that moment forever. I wanted to live in this light, in this presence, in this unbearable, beautiful truth. But the encounter wasn't over. Even as the thought formed, I felt something shift. "There's a reason you're here tonight, Daniel," Jesus said, his tone becoming more urgent. "A reason this is happening now, at this hour, In this way. I looked up at him, still trying to process everything that had just happened, and he continued. Tonight is not random. It's not an accident. It's an appointed time of visitation moment. And it's not just for you. My heart, which had just started to settle, began to race again. What do you mean? He gestured around us, and suddenly I became aware of something I hadn't noticed before. We weren't alone. I couldn't see them clearly, but I could sense them, thousands, maybe millions of people, all standing in their own moments of crisis, their own dark bedrooms, their own desperate prayers. Right now, Jesus said, there are people watching, listening, standing at the edge of decision. They think they're too far gone. They think I've given up on them. They think their shame disqualifies them from my love. His gaze intensified, and I felt the weight of what he was about to say before he even spoke. I need you to tell them. I am visiting them tonight. Right now. This is their moment. The same offer I've made to you, forgiveness, freedom, a new identity I am making to them. But they have to choose it. They have to say yes. The urgency in his voice was palpable, and I understood suddenly why this wasn't just about me. It had never been just about me. How? I asked. How do I tell them? Go back, he said. Tell them Jesus isn't waiting for them to get their life together. He is visiting them now, in the mess, offering the same choice. Come as you are, and be made new. I felt a pull then, a gentle tug back towards something that felt distant and small. My body, my bedroom, my life. Wait, I said, panic rising. I'm not ready. I don't know how to. You don't need to know how, Jesus interrupted. You just need to be willing. The same spirit that raised me from the dead will live in you. The same power that freed you will work through you. You are not going back alone, Daniel. I am with you. I will always be with you. The pull grew stronger, and the light began to dim around the edges. I could feel the transition happening, the spiritual giving way to the physical. One more thing, Jesus said, his voice following me even as the distance between us grew. When you wake up, when you return to that bedroom, check the clock. Why? I asked, my voice fading. Because you need to see what happens when time stops for an encounter with the eternal. And then I was falling. Not down, but across, through dimensions I couldn't name, through a veil I didn't know existed. The golden light gave way to darkness, the warmth to cold, the overwhelming presence to a suffocating absence. I gasped, and air filled my lungs, real air, physical air. My eyes opened, and I was staring at the ceiling of my bedroom, the same water-stained tiles I'd been staring at only moments before. My body ached. My face was wet with tears. My heart was pounding. But I was different. I knew I was different. I turned my head slowly, every movement feeling both foreign and familiar, and looked at the alarm clock on my nightstand. 11:14 p.m. I blinked, trying to make sense of it. When I'd closed my eyes, when I'd whispered that desperate prayer, it had been 3 minutes. The entire encounter, everything Jesus had said, everything I'd experienced had happened in 3 minutes. But it had also lasted hours, days, a lifetime. I sat up, my hands shaking, and I understood what he meant. Time had stopped. Or I'd stepped outside of it. Either way, the impossibility of it was proof that what I'd experienced wasn't a dream. It was real. And if it was real for me, it could be real for anyone. I walked to the window. Outside Porto Alegre was the same. But I wasn't. The bitter, broken man who had been lying there only 3 minutes ago was gone. In his place stood someone new. Someone who knew he was loved. Someone who had been forgiven. Someone who carried a message that could change everything. I thought about the people he showed me. I thought about you. This message is yours. Right now, Jesus is visiting you, actually, offering you the same chance to be known, forgiven, and made new. You don't have to clean yourself up. You just have to say yes. From the other side of this encounter, I promise it's worth it. On the other side of surrender is freedom. Tonight is your appointed time. Don't waste it. I don't know how you got here, what search led you to this video, what desperation or curiosity or boredom brought you to this exact moment. But I know it's not an accident. Nothing with Jesus is ever an accident. He has been pursuing you. He has been calling your name. And tonight, right now, he is extending the same invitation he extended to me. Come home. Before you scroll away, take a moment. Close your eyes. Say this. Jesus, if you're real, if this is real, I'm saying yes. I don't understand it all. I don't have it figured out. But I'm tired of running. I'm tired of hiding. I'm saying yes to you. Forgive me, change me, make me new. That's it. That's the prayer. No formula, no perfect words, just honesty, just surrender. And if you do that, if you take that step, I promise you, he will meet you there. He will show up. Because he's already been waiting. I'm Daniel Costa. I'm a skeptic who met Jesus in my bedroom on a random Tuesday night and came back changed. And if it can happen to me, it can happen to anyone, including you. Tonight decides everything. Don't let this moment pass you by.